Hey everyone, so I got a really great question from Carlos recently, who asked about how to overcome the fear of committing to MD PhD training. And I think it's so important because MD PhD students are signing up for getting a medical degree and a PhD. And while this might sound fancy and cool, in reality, you're committing to 4 years of medical training, you're committing to 4 or 5 years of PhD, maybe longer. And that totals to close to 10 years of your life in your 20s, when a lot of your friends are going to be starting new careers, they're going to be starting families, progressing, and we're more or less in school. And I can speak to how I made the decision, and hopefully it helps you if you're, thinking about being an MD PhD student. But I also want this to be useful for anyone out there who is just committing to a much more long-term career. Like medicine itself is just a marathon. If you're going to medical school, you're going to do residency after, and then start as a junior attending, and then build from there. So these things all take a lot of time, and hopefully you find something useful from how I have learned to manage the, I guess, obstacle of committing to 8 years of school. And I think the four major things that I've learned to rely on are: one, just not being defined by being a student; having really great role models; the career flexibility that results from MD PhD training; and I think most importantly is just the joy of potentially becoming a physician scientist and then working towards that goal. So let's just dive right into it. I think the really one of the most important things is just not being defined by being a student. I spend probably the vast majority of my time at this point in lab. I'm doing research. When I'm not in research, when I'm not in lab doing research, I'm reading papers or coming up with ideas. Mentoring students in lab, and I think it can be really daunting. And you might think to yourself, "Oh, I'm a student first and foremost." While that might be my current stage in life, it's not what defines me. I think for me, while I am a student, I try to maintain happiness and joy through all the things that I do, and that means carving time out with family and friends. Like just this past weekend, I was in Denver at a wedding to see one of my college friends get married, and I am usually with family every other weekend, surfing, gardening, hanging out with my dog. And while you might be defined, or while you might spend a lot of time in school, it doesn't define you. So even though you have 8 years of training, there are all these things that are going to be happening along the way that you can find joy in. And I think one of the most important things that someone told me in the past was that life doesn't wait for medicine, right? Life doesn't wait for your studies. Life's going to continue on. And I think one of the best ways to look at that is to say, I need to carve out time for the things that I enjoy. And even though this whole medicine, physician, scientist thing is a very important part of my life, I'm not gonna let it completely consume me. And I think having that level of balance is incredibly important. I think the second thing that's really key is just having great role models. Like for me, when I was going through the pre-med training and the 4 or 5 years at Hopkins, I actually had MD PhD students who I talked to, I was able to correspond with, and they seemed very relatable. They were super down to earth, and I think really importantly, they were happy. So when I looked at them, I was like, oh wow, this is definitely something that I can do. It's not like I'm trying to trailblaze or forge a path that has never been done before. Thousands of people have gone through this training. They've had great success, and a lot of people do amazing things afterwards. So having role models that I could talk to was really important because it basically humanized the process to me. I saw these people and thought to myself, okay, if Josh can do it, if these people can do it, I why not me? And I think having that sort of mentality made it seem less daunting, right? These are people too. They're going through MD PhD training. They committed to 8 years, and they seem to be extremely happy. And I thought to myself, all right, I feel a little bit more confident in going down this career path. Third, it's more of a MD PhD specific thing, but I think one of the most important things to me was that there would be career flexibility at the start of my training when I was making the decision. Because the MD PhD program is designed to create problem solvers in the medical field, a lot of people don't actually stay in academic medicine, for example. While the vast majority of people end up doing residency and focus on being clinicians, there's a whole slew of people that do research only, or they go into consulting, or they go into finance or biotech. industry jobs. And I think when I was 21 and I didn't really have a clear vision of what I wanted to accomplish in the future, the idea of staying in school, working on a project that I was super passionate about, getting a medical degree, it didn't seem all that crazy because the skills that I would learn, right? Like learning how to interact with patients, being a medical student, learning about human physiology and pathology, and then I think really importantly, being a PhD student who could tackle problems and use science to solve these problems, that was really appealing to me because it could be applied to so many different fields. And when I was younger, I didn't necessarily have this idea that I wanted to do surgery and I wanted to be a neurosurgeon scientist. So it gave me a lot of confidence and it was a huge safety net, right? Like I didn't think of MD PhD as a single road to a final destination. There wasn't just one thing that I was interested in. It was more like develop the skills required for you to make an impact in the future. And I think when I started thinking about it like that, I was no longer pigeonholed, and all of a sudden I was like, okay, the 8 years, if I were in another career like, consulting or biotech, I would be grinding away just doing something else. Like the 20, I kind of accepted that 20s would be the time where I invested in my skill set and my abilities for the future. So doing that in protected time as an MD PhD student seemed like a great opportunity because there's no other training in the world like it. And I think lastly, this is the most important, but if you are interested in medicine and if you're interested in science and you love to be at the intersection of both fields, if one thing that you want to do is improve medicine and improve health and how medicine is done in the future, I can't think of a better way to train, because not only will you get the side of the medical side where you get to interact with patients, you get to understand their problems very deeply, but you'll also have the research side to actually create experiments and create technologies to solve challenges in the future. So I think for me, when I was going through it, I couldn't see myself doing any other thing because I looked at myself and said, wow, medicine is awesome. I want to serve other people as a healer. I want to use medicine to help other people. But in my head, I was like, there's also a lot of pitfalls in medicine. There are a lot of diseases we can't solve. Medicine itself is a very flawed industry. And one way to improve it is through research. And because I had this mentality, and another, I guess, really important ingredient was I loved being in lab. All of these things, I thought to myself, would I be happy doing anything else? And the answer for me was a pretty resounding no. Like I couldn't see myself going directly to industry. I knew I wanted to go to medical school. And I think having that confidence and knowing for a fact that I wanted to be at the intersection, I wanted to develop technologies for the future, and I wanted to do it in a way that was very medically relevant, it kind of narrowed down my choices to say, yeah, physician scientist training, MD PhD training, even though it's 8 years, because this is my particular goal, it made a lot of sense for me to commit to. And I think from my perspective, having gone through 5 years of training, and on the latter half of my training, there is no way I would have wanted it any other way. Like I am very, very thankful that I ended up becoming an MD PhD student. I'm very thankful I made the choices that I made and committed to this long training. And I can tell that I wouldn't have gotten a lot of the skills otherwise if I had just jumped right into a job or gone to medical school specifically. So I do not have any regrets. It's really tough. Don't get me wrong. Like I don't want you to get rose-colored lenses about this training. It's really arduous, but I think coming from me, I want you to also have the confidence to say, Justin's really happy doing this. I might be as well. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight on the way that I think about long, difficult journeys. We need balance in our lives. We need role models. And I think it's really important to do what you love. So the timing isn't so much of a problem. Like for me, I'm actually planning to tack on an additional 7 years as a neurosurgeon. So, I'm committing to not being an attending physician until I'm probably like 39. So I think I'm probably the prototypical, like, do what you love and work your way up to that goal. Like the timing, if it's something that I want to commit to, it's not it's not a huge consideration because I know that there are going to be things along the way that I'm able to accomplish in my personal life, like starting a family or, writing and all of these, starting a YouTube channel. So there is plenty of time for these things on your career and on your journey to becoming a physician scientist. So I hope you have some time to think about these decisions for your own life, but also have a little bit of confidence to know that other people have gone before you and other people have come out extremely happy with their training. Thank you again, Carlos, for asking me that question. If any of you guys have other questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.